Australians be prepared for having their faces scanned to use social media?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Tonight I have the privilege and honour to bring back on Daniel Jones, a veteran security expert. How are you, Daniel?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, thank God. Nice to have you back on again.
Thank you. Good to be back on.
We recently had the Australia Day event a couple of weeks ago, and I would say I'm tempted to say it's kind of like Groundhog Day. You get all these people, unfortunately, that take over the city and they have a demonstration, and they're not exactly patriotic. They don't call their rallies Australia Day rallies. They call them Invasion Day rallies. So I'm tempted to say it's Groundhog Day, but it's not the same every year. The difference is it seems to get more and more feral every single year.
Yep, it's certainly not getting any better.
And it's getting more radical. I've noticed that there's been a full-blown infiltration of foreign subversive elements. I would suspect from potentially maybe Iran and some other bad actors. And I just want to play you a very short clip, and I want to get your reaction to this. So this was on Australia Day in Melbourne, outside the State Parliament House. So there are people in this colony who will only accept force. The colony will fall. Daniel Jones, what's your reaction to that, hearing that?
I would consider that a direct threat. My experience is when people tell you something, especially when you first hear them or whatever, they're generally telling you the truth. The lies from people generally start later on. When people like that say the colony will fall, You know, we're going to use force. All people understand is force. They use force. Therefore, we're going to use self-defense and force. I believe them. I believe that is not self-defense, but it is a direct threat. We're going to tear down the walls brick by brick of prisons. And what? Let rapists out? Murderers out? Like, what is the objective? What is the end goal of tearing down brick by brick, wall by wall of prisons? What does prisons have to do with their cause? There's a lot of disassociation with a lot of them. A lot of it doesn't make sense. But that said, I believe they will use force. I 100% believe them.
Stupid question. Or maybe I'm sounding naive here. Why are the police just standing by? Why are the authorities just standing by and allowing this incitement to happen?
Well, I think it's very political. I don't know the internal workings of Parliament and what's going on, but I believe the police act on what they're told. They have to act within the confines of the law, and they are meant to uphold the right by the motto of Victoria Police. Unfortunately, though, what we are seeing with police is a two-tiered system. During COVID, you saw them bow for Black March Matters, but they shot people in the back with 40mm rubber projectiles while chasing them on the back of Bearcat armoured vehicles for protesting against COVID, where there was some very serious, legitimate concerns about locking people up, loss of livelihoods and business and whatnot. So I think a lot of it is politically driven, and I think the police, for the last few police commissioners where you've had Simon Overland, Christine Nixon, have been very weak. They like to appease. They like to surround themselves with yes men, people who tell them, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full. Oh, that's what you want to hear. That's what we will tell you. They don't have the fortitude in them to stand up and say, listen, no, this is the law. We will enforce it equally. We will enforce it fairly for one and all. I just think they're too timid and weak to stand up. I think the police force are more worried about their image. They're more worried about what people think. They're more worried about how things will be perceived and how they will be seen, as opposed to how they are.
That's kind of ironic that they're worried about how people think of them, seeing that it wasn't that long ago that they marched into or barged into a pregnant woman's house and arrested her. And this was went viral all around the world.
Amongst many other things, of them choking several women, and wasn't a good look, to be honest. And like you say, it is kind of ironic because the way they've looked from that, there's been a lot of loss of respect for the police in regards to their two-tiered policing, in regards to their handling of the COVID era, in regards to how they've treated people. And now they're not helping themselves by allowing people to go down the streets yelling out all Zionists are terrorists, to take over the street every Sunday, to attack buskers and football fans for no reason. And the police do not intervene. You see with some Jewish people who went to go to the town hall, and they arrested the people trying to get into the town hall who got assaulted. Then they use this pathetic excuse of disturbing the peace and whatnot. Oh, you know, you're in danger. Okay, well, last time I checked, assault was illegal. Grab the person doing the assault. They're the ones breaking the law. But the police, again, fail to do things like this, which does not instill confidence in the public that the police are acting fairly, that they're doing their job, and that people are going to be protected.
Someone's made an interesting comment. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Jan. Good evening, everyone else. Mark's got an interesting comment. Just to add to what you said, Daniel, when I worked for state government, the top managers always surrounded themselves with obedient yes people, servile sycophants. That's just the nature of government bureaucracies.
It is, Daniel, I agree.
What are your... we've seen a lot of, radical Islamist elements within these demonstrations, within the Invasion Day rallies. They try to insert themselves. They try to take over, infiltrate these rallies. Do you think, from your observation, with your expertise and knowledge, is there still a large Antifa presence there?
Oh, huge. I wouldn't say they're trying to infiltrate. Honestly, I'd say they have infiltrated. They have taken over. They do have that power and influence. Despite that, I think they treat Antifa as useful idiots, which is what a lot of them are. We all know what's going to happen to Antifa if the radical part of Islamists took control. They'd throw them off buildings. And they would be the first people they'd throw off buildings. But I believe, yeah, there is still a big hard left element through universities in the rallies that is definitely present. I went out the other day with Avi. He did a story on the Lions of Zion.
That's right.
And yeah, look, there was a few of the Islamists that were causing issues. And if you looked across the road, a lot of them were your young, middle-class looking white Anglo-Saxon Antifa types that were there, with some of them waving money and whatnot too. So, which just goes to show they call everyone else bigots and racists, but then they partake in that sort of behaviour, waving money and throwing coins at Jewish people, which one has to ask, is that not exactly what they are meant to be condemning?
I was actually there as well, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I was the most Jewish-looking guy with my yarmulke and my beard, my skull cap. A lot of them weren't wearing skull caps, so people really. So I was the most Jewish-looking guy, and this woman, there was obviously a police barricade separating us, but she specifically selected me. She walks up, police in between us, so she's about 5 meters away with a cop standing in front of me. Deliberately walks up to me and throws a coin at me. And she's I'm guessing she's of Middle Eastern descent, but there was this white woman, typical progressive looking girl, that goes to all these humanitarian rallies and champions progressive causes, and she starts laughing. She's got this massive smirk as she looks at me, and I react to her throwing money at me. She finds that amusing. So
yes, I think I know the girl you're talking about. I forget her name offhand. She has a lot to do. She's very close with Geordie Silverstein, who runs Jews Against Fascism, and she's very close with that Jews Against Fascism group, and which is kind of funny, because if you're close to Jewish people and you're against fascism, why are you then throwing coins at Jewish people? That again is quite a big contradiction. But that is the radical left for you, I suppose.
Exactly. I want to, before I move on to what I call the woke right, I want to play one more clip. This was in the lead up to Australia Day. So this is probably a week or a couple of weeks before Australia Day. So you can see this gentleman, he's holding up a placard with an Australian flag, and you won't be able to see it, but there's a Christian motto at the bottom of that placard. It's promoting Christianity. It's promoting Australian values and patriotism, and also Christianity, which Australia obviously is a country that's built on Christian values.
I was going to say, I imagine they will surround him, harass him.
That's right. You must be psychic. How did you know?
I've seen it all before with this lot. It never changes.
So you see this guy here, KOFY Karen. I'm going to call him KOFY Karen. He basically takes his placard away and steals it. So they don't just hate Jews and Israel. They hate Australia. He was just standing there. He's got every right to be there. He's there with a Christian group in the city. They're proselytizing. That's what I'm assuming they're doing. They're spreading their, their religious beliefs to other people. And they have every right to do that. And it just so happens that a Palestinian march goes through, pro-Palestine, pro-socialist Antifa march, and they seem to have a problem with him, and they surround him and they steal his placard.
Look, they're just bullies. They're just, you always notice in groups, they're brave. Online, they're brave. They will try to set people up, like this. And the funny thing is, how do we know this bloke with the
Look at
Australian
this, by
flag?
the way. Sorry, Daniel. Look at this. They just they harass him to the point where they just stick stuff on his back. They got no respect. I mean, he's a senior citizen.
It's juvenile behaviour.
And these are adults.
You put the kick me sign.
They're not even children. They're adults. You've got one guy that's in his 40s that's sticking a sticker on his back.
That's the scary thing. I was going to say, remember when you were on the back with the kick me sign? This is the same juvenile behaviour. It's just there to belittle people, embarrass people, and it's just there to make people look small so that these people feel big and strong and powerful. The reality is they're not big and strong and powerful. I bet your old mate with the sticker would have had nothing to say if he was on his own and if he wasn't in the group. When they get to a group, you get, group mentality. And that amplifies everything. And then there's the loss of identity. People feel like they can get away with things because they're part of the group. The group encourages that behaviour, that amplifies it. And that's all you see right there is that very typical behaviour. And people who engage in that behaviour, typically they don't have the brains to sit there and go, no, this is wrong. They don't have the self-identity and the fortitude to go, no, this is wrong, and I am not participating either. They just join in like juvenile little kids.
That's quite, scary when you think about it, that people become totally different when they're with a mob. So when they're on their own, they might be nice, maybe reserved, but they sound like decent people when you've got them one-on-one. But all of a sudden, when they're a mob of 10 or 100 or 1,000, the bigger it gets, the worse it gets. They become they transform into complete savages.
Yeah, animals, and they become dangerous. Yep, it's very scary. And the fact is you do have agitators in that crowd that rev people up as well. They're professionals at what they do. They are professional protesters. They are professional agitators. That's what they do. If you read into some material, it's not uncommon where they will put things like paint or marbles for putting under horses' hooves, like caltrops and whatnot. And they'll put that out a day, 2 days, 3 days before a protest. They'll do things like they'll have paint, for instance, in bottles, and they just put little stickers on it. They rev people up, then they hand them the bottle with a little note that says, "Throw at police." And the person sees it and goes, "Oh, yeah, that'd be a good idea," after they've revved them up. And they don't think, and they just throw the... And that's how a lot of this all works. You've got the agitators who rev people up, then the people get revved up, and they're the ones who cause the issues.
And it's interesting you mention agitators, because this woman that made a speech here, so she made that speech about the colony will fall, and she's married to a bloke called Mohammed Sharaf. So she's a notorious agitator.
Good old Mohammed.
And that's her husband. Yep. She's married.
That
they recently
explains
got
a lot.
Married. And they're both, so she's calling for terrorism, and he actually went on the record and called for terrorism as well. He met up with an indigenous activist called Kieran, he appears right here. So him and that's Kieran on the left there. And they're both saying how terrorism against white colonial settlers is justified, and that it's one day that it could happen. And they're openly talking about this, and they're posting this on their Instagram accounts. It's just insane.
Well, there's the scary thing. They are justifying their behaviour. It's like you do something is wrong. You know it's wrong. You go, "Oh, but." No, there is no "oh, but." If you have to say "oh, but," then what you're doing is wrong. You're just trying to justify your poor behaviour. And that's exactly what they're doing. If you can justify poor behaviour for something that doesn't hurt anyone, okay, that's fine. You do you. But they're advocating for, like you said, terrorism, violence, aggression. People are going to get hurt. People are going to die. That's exactly what they're calling for, and that is dangerous. And while I advocate for free speech, and they have, I suppose, the right to advocate for violence, I certainly don't agree with it. I think it's important that there's pushback, that sensible people say, no, there is no justification for this. And I think people like that, the authority should really be keeping a bit of an eye on them. And if there is any sense that with their justifications, they then take the next step to plan or act, You want to be proactive about that. You don't want to be reactive. If you're reactive, people get hurt. You want to be proactive and say, all right, you've said this, we've allowed you to say it, that's fine. But now you're making plans, now you're buying objects, now you're putting things into motion. Boom, we need to stop this. We're not going to have you hurt people.
While we're on the topic of agitators and Antifa, an interesting revelation came out. So I'm going to shift over to what a few people call the woke right. I know that there are people that object to this term, but it's a justified term because essentially the extreme right and the radical left are two sides of the same coin. They're virtually identical with whatever differences there are between the two groups, they're superficial. I know some people are going to disagree, but you need to wake up to that fact. I'm going to show you one prime example of this.
Just before you go into that, I will point out, where you say they're two sides of the same coin, both of them don't like Israel. The only difference between the extreme left and the extreme right is what we were just talking about, the justification. They both believe the same thing. They both want the same thing. They just make two very different justifications for it. And what they're arguing about is semantics. They argue with each other about the justification. Well, failing to realise they both support the same sort of cause.
Exactly. The end game
scary,
is
isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And, Joel Davis is relatively new to the extreme right. Blair Cottrell, Thomas Sewell have been involved in far-right politics for over a decade. Joel Davis is new to the scene, and there's been an interesting revelation about him. So right now he's being put on the pedestal by a lot of people on the right. I just want to say, though, preface by saying that these guys have every right to free speech. I agree with you, Daniel. They shouldn't have been arrested on Australia Day. They shouldn't have been, they shouldn't have been had their accounts taken off X. I know that Blair Cottrell and Thomas Sewell were suspended from X. Shouldn't have happened. They have every right to free speech. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, I also think it's ironic that, they're champions of free speech. They're put on a pedestal by a lot of people on the right and the libertarian movement and conservatives as champions of free speech. Now, again, look, you can make a valid argument, which I would accept, about their right to free speech, but it is ironic because they themselves don't believe in free speech, and if they ever get into power, God forbid, their political opponents are going to be thrown into concentration camps in the best case scenario. And there's been
much like the extreme left.
Exactly.
Like
and just
two sides of the one coin.
That's right. I want to get your reaction to this video, though. This is just to emphasize my point. A recent revelation about Joel Davis. Watch this.
Rock up and actually joined Antifa because I wanted a kind of moral excuse for throwing Molotov cocktails at policemen and punching on with people in the street. And I was kicked out of Antifa by a legion of blue-haired feminists because I was trying to regiment and organize them into a hierarchy. I started giving people roles, trying to work out how are we going to build weapons and fight with some kind of coordination.
So right up until recently, this dude that's seen as a hero of the right, a lot of conservatives, and it's not everyone, but quite a few are looking to him as some kind of hero for free speech. He was part of Antifa. What's your reaction to that?
I've never met Joel. I don't know Joel. So anything I say is not personal towards Joel at all. But I don't know. Like I say, someone to go from Antifa to the other side, I don't know. I mean, people have changes of heart, changes of opinion. I don't really have a huge opinion on that. I mean, I accept that if he joined Antifa or wanted to join and Antifa isn't really a group, it's more of an idea. They have other groups like Waka and Raha or Rahu. They have all these different little groups. Antifa's more the idea. But I accept he may have changed opinions, he may have changed ideas, or maybe he's one of those people who are just looking for a cause, no matter what or looking for a cause to justify things no matter what the cause is. Again, I don't know the guy. I can only speculate and guess. And that's all it is.
I mean, yeah, it just sounds very sus. It might look, if I were to make an assumption, obviously I don't know him either, but if I was just to make an assumption, I don't think that switch was very hard, that transition. I think it was a pretty smooth transition to go from Antifa, where you're preaching violence and anarchy, to the National Socialist Alliance, where they're pretty much doing similar things with some superficial differences.
I mean, in all fairness, the National Socialist Network haven't attacked anybody yet. They haven't attacked police. So when they say we've been peaceful, yes. Now, is Joel's intention to train them to gain numbers, and when they have the numbers to become violent? I don't know. What I think is irrelevant. They've certainly not expressed the intention to do that yet. They've said they're going to remain peaceful. That said, who knows? I don't know. What does worry me, and again, Joel is entitled to his opinion. He's entitled to say what he said, and that is fine. My big concern with that video is the fact that he wasn't talking. He says, I was doing. That's the next step. That's planning. That's taking action. And that's setting in motion the ability to now go out in an organised group. So it's not one person losing control, some emotions and hitting someone. It's organised with a group to go out and willfully cause harm to another human being, whether that's throw Molotovs at them, smash them with batons, broken glass and cut down their, whatever it is. The fact is that there was training with the intention that was put into place to attack people, other people. And look, why are they attacking other people? What's the objective? What I've seen with the far left, it's generally they are going to attack other people because those people don't agree with them. They have a difference of opinion. And God honest, if I punched everyone I had a difference of opinion with, I would punch my mum, I would punch my dad, I would punch you, I would punch my missus. I would have to punch myself occasionally when I change my mind. It's, you shouldn't be going out to assault people and organise groups with weapons with the sole intention of harming other people just based on the fact that they have a different thought pattern, process, belief or opinion to you. And that's the bit that I find somewhat worrying.
It was an interesting comment for him from Joanna Mason. Many are servants of the NWO. Operatives are on both sides. I am inclined to believe that, although it's just, I don't have any proof of that. It's just conjecture. But I think, there is indications that it might be the case. And the fact that Joel Davis was only just literally yesterday part of Antifa kind of just strengthens the suspicions that I have and that you've brought up, Joanna. It is quite sus. I don't think these groups, these activists are all, organic grassroots activists. I really feel that they are getting support from people in high places that are operating from behind the scenes. And I get suspicious, that they get arrested, and I don't know, the suspicion I get this feeling, again, conjecture on my part. I accept that. I don't have any evidence. But it's all somehow designed to get them more followers and more recruits and to help them grow.
Yep. And it's funny you mentioned that. At the Never Again Is Now rally, which was quite some time ago, I observed, while working with Avi, I observed a gentleman who I got a photo of pass something to Rohan. Is it his name, Rohan Irvine?
Oh,
the guy with the little dog. Yep. Now, he passed something to him. Now, whether it was money, a note, instructions, I don't know. What I do know is the guy who passed it to him was excessively hyper-vigilant. So hyper-vigilant, he saw me way back, way from him, zooming in my camera, taking photos of him, and he went to great lengths to try walk away, hide his identity, act natural, and walk off. And I didn't see
Wow.
him again for the rest of the day. So like you said, I do believe there are people in the background that I don't know whether they're giving instructions, organising, payments, I don't know. But they're obviously, that does show me there is a level of organisation. Now, to believe the far left are doing this but not the far right, you'd have to be stupid to believe that. They would both be doing the same things. It's just human behaviour. Far right, far left, doesn't matter. I have no doubt. I think the NSN, I honestly believe they did start as a grassroots movement with their belief. Have they been infiltrated by now? Possibly. I don't know. I'm not part of their group. I can't comment. But it's a possibility. Is it a possibility that that's the New World Order, the federal police? I don't know. I really don't. Is it a possibility? Sure. Anything's a possibility. Are there people higher up, businessmen who don't want their name involved but are happy to give money? Probably, most certainly. I think that's a pretty fair assumption to make.
Yeah, and look, there have been also whistleblowers, dissidents from communist China, one of who is a very wealthy billionaire. He's based in the US. He's been outspoken about the communist Chinese regime, and he claims that China, as well as some other state actors, are actually paying people to go out and demonstrate on the streets of the United States and other Western countries for Palestine and for other causes in order to wreak havoc and sow division.
Wouldn't surprise me. The Ministry of State Security from China, it's like their spy network. They're all into all kinds of things. They've been sending spies for years, and they've learnt the best way to spy is not to spy. It's not to try to steal your secrets. They've learnt that they've been highly effective by sending in these spies as journalists, artists, influencers, and then influencing a change in opinion over time. So it's like guerrilla warfare, the war of the flea. You don't win by getting a knockout punch. Fleas will drop a dog by nipping bit by bit by bit and just taking a drop of blood at a time until the dog eventually loses enough blood that it gets sick and drops and dies. And that's what China is doing, the war of the flea. They're just nipping bit by bit by bit with their spies, working on influence of our politicians, influence of people with money and power, influence of the plebs on the streets, paying them to go and demonstrate. I don't know if that's a fact, but it wouldn't surprise me. It would meet the objective of what they're trying to do, for sure.
Just with Joel Davis and the far-right group here, they got some criticism. They copped some criticism from Nick Fuentes, the king of the gropers, and that was totally unexpected. I'm just going to play this clip. It's a really interesting short clip.
Joel Davis arrested outside court again today. Never has a man been more vindicated than Nicholas J. Fuentes. Joel is achieving absolutely nothing by doing this. It's difficult to watch a smart guy with a lot of potential take this path. When will Wignets learn from the America First strategy?
There's just no excuse. I don't even debate them anymore because we settled that debate 8 years ago. Okay. We settled that debate in 2017 and 2018. So if people are still doing the Matt Heimbach, NSM thing, I'm just not even arguing with those people anymore. As far as I'm concerned, that's a filter. If you think that's a good idea, you're better off getting caught up in that and not associating with us. So, I oppose it. I have my reasons for opposing it, but they always, well, let's debate why it's better. Look, if people want to get involved in that, that's like a Darwin Award. I hate that expression, but it's like you won your Darwin Award. If you think dressing up in all black, they're not even marching in time. It's just ridiculous. They bring a drum and they don't even march in time. They're holding their flag sideways and they're all just kind of like, marching to their own pace. And they're just thugs. I mean, it's just like a bunch of repugnant thugs. That's how the vast majority of the population sees it. They might even be right wing, but they see a bunch of amateurs. They're not even military. They're not marching in time. They're just a bunch of guys walking in the streets, screaming, boorish, dressed in all black, LARPing, Nobody looks at that and says, I'm a normal person, high status. I want to get in on that.
Joel Davis is in a jail cell, allegedly for fighting on behalf of all 20 people who live in Australia. Can you give the neg a book recommendation?
Whoa, this is it's a meta-political victory. Because people are going to look at that and say, oh, oi, the Jews put him in prison. Said nobody.
So it appears that even Nick Fuentes sees right through them. But unfortunately, quite a few people on the right in Australia don't seem to grasp that, which is ironic and interesting.
Yeah. Again, people are entitled to their opinions. I thought it was interesting where he said they're not marching in time, and look, in all fairness, he's right there. If people march in time, it looks like a uniform, it looks like together, it looks disciplined. That's more scary to me, to be honest. If you've got a group that's marching in time, they've put some time in, they've put some effort in, they're dedicated, look, how people view the NSN, different people are going to view them different ways. People can argue going out in masks and all black is not helping the cause. Some people will say, no, you need a strong unity. I get why they are hiding their faces, to be honest. The far left do love to dox people. I've got a mate, I won't mention his name. He was tied in. Now, he doesn't have anything to do with the NSN. He's been tied in with them, though, by the far left, to the point where he's had his bank accounts cancelled and whatnot.
Wow.
So I get why they hide their face, in all fairness, because the far left do dox people, they do harass, they do things like that. And personally, I get their point. I wouldn't want to have my bank accounts closed. Yeah, I wouldn't want to lose my job. I wouldn't want my family harassed. So I get why they do that. How it looks, though, well, that's open to other people. That's open to opinion. But like I say, I can understand it. I don't necessarily have to agree with it. And again, leading back to what we spoke about earlier, putting a mask on, and I actually was going to mention masks, so I didn't. Same as a group, you put a mask on someone, you see the change in their behaviour.
That's right.
Because they feel there's some anonymity, so they can let their true self come out.
Yep.
So in a way, it's kind of good that they're masked. At least you're hearing truly what they think and what they have to say. At least you're getting a much more honest thing coming out, or a much more honest dialogue coming out of them in that regard. I mean, that's my opinion.
Absolutely. So human psychology is really interesting, to say the least. Now, Daniel, I know you're short for time, but how can people find you?
I'm on X. I forget my handle now. I think it's Tactical Force Combatives, or TFC 338.
I'll put it in the
Tactical Force Combatives, it should come up. I'm on Facebook under Tactical Force Combatives, facebook.com/Tactical Force Combatives. I have a website, tacticalforcecombatives.com.au.
Excellent. The links are in the description, so I've put it in. And everyone, please also go into Closed Social. So it's been set up by the brilliant Michael Gray Griffith. So it's a free speech platform. If you haven't signed up, please do it now. Daniel, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our lovely audience before we wrap up?
I would just like to encourage people to make sure they stay safe, look after yourselves, look after each other, look after your loved ones, and just try to be a good person. That's all I really have to say about it all. You don't have to agree with people. Yep.
I was just going to say, sorry to cut you in. One other thing. So do you run a martial arts course or something?
At times, I'm not running regular classes at the moment.
Okay.
From time to time, we do run. I've been running beginner self-defense courses, which starts off with the first half is theory. We cover self-defense law, use of force, body language, communication, conflict management, de-escalation. The second half, we start looking at some basic techniques for cover, protection, basic strikes, and a few basic combination strikes for the ability to hopefully disarm, distract, disable the attacker to give you enough time and space to be able to evade and escape the situation.
Now, people can jump on your website, which is in the description, and they can sign up for these courses if they're in Melbourne.
Yeah, absolutely. I usually hold them in Epping, where I used to live. So I still hold it there at the hall because it's convenient. I know the location. I'm happy with the hall. So usually in Epping.
Brilliant. Excellent. And Daniel, I'd love to have you come back on again. It's been an absolute honour.
It would be a privilege to come back on again. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and thank you for watching, everyone. God bless. Have a good evening.